We're going to go over these and we're going to see which names would actually match with these different kinds of shapes. Now remember we said that most of the other shapes, most of the other polygons are pretty simple. Yeah, when you finish those first 5 Messiah, you're supposed to turn it in. Most of the other polygons are pretty simple. If it has 6 sides, it's a hexagon. If it has 8 sides, it's an octagon. If it has 10 sides, it's a decagon. Quadrilaterals, the ones that have 4 sides, are the ones that make things a little more difficult because there's a lot of different ways to make a polygon that has 4 sides. So there is a group of shapes that are all quadrilaterals, and we can tell them apart depending on certain characteristics of each of them. I'm going to start with task number 1. Here's the shape that they show us, and they tell us that this shape can have 3 different names. The first one would be polygon, and if you have it in a different order, don't worry about it, so long as you have the right names. The order does not matter. So polygon is definitely one of the names for this shape. It's got more than 3. It's got 3 sides or more, and there's no opening. The polygon would absolutely describe this. Quadrilateral, the next one, because it's a polygon with 4 sides. Quadrilateral would work as well. The last one that would work would be trapezoid. Trapezoids are kind of like the special quadrilaterals. They're the ones that are, I guess, the most different compared to all the other quadrilaterals, because trapezoids only have one pair of parallel lines. This shape here has the top and the bottom that would be parallel, but these 2 sides, if I were to stretch out my lines, eventually somewhere around up here, they would run into each other. There's only one set of parallel lines, which makes this trapezoid. So the 3 names we were looking for were polygon, quadrilateral, and trapezoid. If you got it right, by the way, you're absolutely fine. If you made a mistake, go ahead and fix it. Okay, the next shape. Here's what they show us, and this time they tell us that this shape has 4 names that we could call it, 4 different things that it could be or could be described as. A lot like task number 1 or slide number 1, polygon is one of the names because, again, got more than 2 sides, no openings, it's a closed shape. Quadrilateral is another name because it has 4 sides, polygon with 4 sides, always a quadrilateral. Now we need to find, not really come up, we're not making them up. We need to find 2 more names that could describe this shape. One of the words, or one of the things that could describe this shape, would be parallelogram. We could call this shape a parallelogram because it's got 2 pairs of parallel sides. I know it's kind of hard because it's like on its side, but we have, I guess you could call this the top and the bottom. The top and the bottom would both be parallel, and then the left and the right sides would be parallel. So it's got 2 pairs of parallel sides, which means that we could call this parallelogram. There's one last name that I could give to this shape. The last name I could give to this shape would be rhombus. What makes this shape a rhombus is that all 4 of my sides are equal. I can tell that because they put little marks on the sides letting me know how long they are, and all of my sides have the same mark. So for slide number 2, my shape could be a polygon, it could be a quadrilateral, parallelogram, or a rhombus. If you had turned it in already, Bradley, that might be why it's not letting you fix any mistakes, because once it's turned in, it kind of like locks everything. So when you click on the assignment, find the button that says unsubmit, and then you'll be able to fix your mistake.
I did do that, but it still wouldn't let me.
I can check to see if it's submitted for you. Let me see. I'm on yours right now, Bradley, and it's letting me move stuff around. What you could try doing is pressing the reload button, the one that looks like a circle. See if that would help you out. Like we were saying, if you already turned it in, if you finished it, you can make sure that you're fixing your mistakes while we're going over it. So if you notice, oh, I messed up, I didn't put this name or I put the wrong name, you can go back and fix it. Yes, Alexa.
I did do it for homework, but are we supposed to turn it in?
When you finish with it, yeah, but don't turn it in right now, because if you made a mistake and you need to fix it, it's not going to let you if you have it turned in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We've gone over task number 1, gone over task number 2. Take a look at task number shape. Brianna, make sure we're focused. The shape can be named 4 different ways. Which 4 names can the shape be titled? So they give us another shape. And again, they tell us that there's 4 different names that we could give this shape. There's going to be 2 that are going to be pretty constant. Polygon and quadrilateral. Polygons just mean that the shape has more than 2 sides and that there's no openings. That describes this shape. Quadrilateral tells me that it's a polygon, more than 2 sides, closed, but quadrilaterals have to have exactly 4 sides. Shape has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So I've got 2 names left that I could match it with. One of them would be rectangle. Rectangle has 2 pairs of equal sides, so 2 long sides, 2 short sides, and a rectangle has to have 4 right angles. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 right angles. There's one last name that I could give to this shape. The last name that I could give to this shape is parallelogram. I can call it a parallelogram because it has 2 pairs of parallel sides. The left side and the right side would be parallel. The top and the bottom would be parallel. So this one, the 4 names for it would be polygon, quadrilateral, rectangle, parallelogram. Bella, make sure we're paying attention. On slide 4, it tells us that that shape can only have 2 names. 2 ways that we could describe that shape. We could say it's a polygon. It does have more than 2 sides, no openings. And we could say it's a quadrilateral because it's got 4 sides. But that's it. It doesn't follow any of the rules for a trapezoid, a rhombus, a parallelogram, a square, a rectangle, none of that. So the only 2 names I could give it, polygon, quadrilateral. That's it. And last one from my homework last night. This shape, this one has 6 different names that would match what this shape is. I told you 2 of them would work for any of the ones we've looked at. We could call them all polygons, and we could call them all quadrilaterals. Because they were all closed shapes. They all had more than two sides, and in fact, they all had exactly four sides. The polygon and quadrilateral would work for any of them. Yes, Violet?
I tried to move my wrong ones, but it's just staying blue and it's not letting me move them.
Let me check. Try pressing the reload button, Violet, because I'm on yours right now and it's letting me move them around. You don't have yours turned in, so that wouldn't mess you up there. Try just reloading it, see if that helps you. And for this shape, still four other names that would match this shape. One of them would be parallelogram, because it's got two pairs of parallel sides. Left side and the right side are parallel. The top and the bottom are parallel. Another word or another name that could describe this shape is rhombus. I could call it a rhombus because all four sides are equal. Another name that would match this shape is rectangle, because it's got two sets of equal sides and it's got one, two, three, four right angles. And the last name that I could give to this shape is square, because it has all four equal sides, it's got four right angles, and it's got four sides. So this shape I could call a polygon, a quadrilateral, a parallelogram, a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square, because it matches all of those rules. I know this is where we stopped for home. Oh, yes, Kylie.
I actually didn't need to change anything in my homework.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. It's awesome. I know this is where we stopped for our homework, but we're going to go a little bit further together. The next slide says move the shape names at the right of the screen to show your answers. Move the names of the shapes to complete the hierarchy. Okay? Hierarchy, very fancy word. What hierarchy means is kind of like the order. Okay? Or you could say like what shape is the boss of the other shapes. So if you notice, quadrilateral is at the top, and then the arrow goes down and down and down. Okay? The quadrilateral. Again, a quadrilateral is a polygon with four sides. That's why it's at the top, because all of the shapes or all of the names we're going to put in here are all quadrilaterals. They all have four sides, like a square. See that at the bottom already. Square has four sides. Yes, Kylie.
Oh, I just know one of the answers.
Oh, okay. So we do have to be careful with this one, because in a hierarchy, it has to go in order. So if I have the right name, but I put it in the wrong place, I need to be careful. So what word do you think I could add to my hierarchy, Kylie? Which name do you think belongs in one of these spaces?
Trapezoid.
Trapezoid is not one of them that belongs here. Trapezoid is a quadrilateral, but it wouldn't go in this order. So I'm going to move my trapezoid over here. I'm not going to use that one. Alexa, do you have one that you think that matches it?
Yes, parallelogram.
Parallelogram. Parallelogram would. Yes, Messiah. We're doing this one together, so you would want to make sure that yours matches mine. Parallelogram does belong in our hierarchy, and it belongs right underneath quadrilaterals. Okay? So parallelograms are a special kind of quadrilateral. So even though they have four sides and even though they're closed shapes, parallelograms have like extra rules that they need to follow. They need to have those two sets of parallel sides. Okay? There's one more name that I need to add to this hierarchy that belongs between a parallelogram and a square. Bella, make sure you're paying attention. Kylie, which word do you think belongs there?
Polygon?
Polygon? No, polygon would belong higher up. Because remember, a polygon just has two things it needs to do. It needs to have more than two sides, and it needs to be closed. So polygon, if we had a longer hierarchy, polygon would be up here. It would be above quadrilateral. Because quadrilaterals are a special kind of polygon. I've got pentagon, triangle, and rhombus that are left. Alexa, what do you think? Oh, think Alexa.
Rhombus?
Rhombus. Rhombus is the one that goes here in the middle. A rhombus is a special kind of parallelogram. It follows all the parallelogram rules about having two sets of parallel sides, but a rhombus has extra rules. Rhombus has to have four equal sides. So the reason why they call this a hierarchy is, again, these are, and I added polygon up here at the top because Kylie's right. If the hierarchy was longer, polygon would belong here. But a square is a kind of rhombus, a special kind of rhombus. A rhombus is a special kind of parallelogram. And a parallelogram is a special kind of quadrilateral. And even quadrilaterals are special kinds of polygons. We'll do one more part together. Do this one. Task number 7. Task number 7 says, move the statements to the correct side of the true or false t-chart. So they give us 6 different statements. And all we have to do is we look at the statements. If we think they're false, put them on the false side. If we think they're true, we put them on the true side. So let's take a look at some of these statements and see if we can figure out if they are true or if they're false. The first statement, a square is always a rhombus where all angles are right angles. A square is always a rhombus where all angles are right angles. Okay, so looking at that statement, do we think that it's a true statement or do we think it's a false statement? Who can give me their idea? What do you think it would be? A square is always a rhombus where all angles are right angles. Alexa, what do you think? Is that true or is that false?
I think true.
That statement, true. A square does follow all the rules to be a rhombus. It's got 4 sides, it's got 2 sets of parallel sides, and it has 4 equal sides. But a square also has to follow an extra rule. A square has to have right angles. So this would be a true statement. A square is always a rhombus where all the angles are right angles. Kind of like we saw here. A square is always a rhombus. Right? What about the next one? A parallelogram is always a rectangle where all the sides are equal. A parallelogram is always a rectangle where all the sides are equal. What do you think, Violet? Is that a true statement or is it a false statement? Where would you put it?
False.
This one is a false statement. A parallelogram does not have to be a rectangle. Remember, a rectangle has an important rule to it. It has two pairs of equal sides. So like two long sides, two short sides. Parallelogram doesn't have to follow that rule. So this one is false. Also, parallelograms, all the sides don't have to be equal. They could be equal, they could be different. Okay, next one. A rectangle is always a square where all sides are congruent. Before we talk about that one, they use that word congruent. And we've heard that before in class. What does congruent mean? Who remembers? Alexa, what does congruent mean?
I think equal.
Kind of. You're not wrong there, but congruent is talking about two things. Messiah, do you remember? Two things that have to be true to be congruent. Equal's not a bad way to say it, but it's a little more specific than just saying it's equal. There we go. The same size and the same shape. So just saying that it's equal, kind of, it's not wrong, like I said. But specifically, congruent is talking about shapes. Same size, same shape. But this one says a rectangle is always a square where all the sides are congruent. All the sides are the same size and the same shape. I need to figure out, where do I put this? Is it true or is this false? Noah, what do you think? Is it true or false? A rectangle is always a square when all sides are congruent.
I think it's false.
This one, because of the way that they wrote it, is actually true. The reason what makes this true is one word, Noah. I'm going to zoom in so I can show you. What makes this true is just one single word. When. When you have a rectangle and all of your sides are the same, then it's a square. So if you have a rectangle, let's say I have one here in my hands, and I were to squish it together so that every side is the same. I don't have long sides and short sides. I have four sides that are equal. That makes it a square. The squares have the right angles, they have two pairs of parallel sides, and every side of a square is equal. So if I take a rectangle and all the sides are congruent, that does make it into it. But it's just that one word. Without that one word, you would have been right. Okay, the next one. A rhombus is always a square where all sides are congruent. Is this one going to go on true or is it going to go on false? A rhombus is always a square where all sides are congruent. Bailey, what do you think? Is this a true or a false statement? A rhombus is always a square where all sides are congruent.
True.
This one is false. The only thing that makes this false is because a rhombus and a square have very similar rules. But a square has one extra rule, a rule that a rhombus doesn't have to follow. The rule for a square, or one of the rules for a square, because squares have to follow lots of rules, is that it has to have 4 right angles. Can't have a square you don't have 4 right angles. But a rhombus does not have to have right. A rhombus can have right angles, or it can have acute angles, or it can have obtuse angles. A rhombus gets to have whatever kind of angles it wants. So, a rhombus is not always a square, because sometimes a rhombus has acute angles and sometimes it has obtuse angles. Can't have those if you're a square. All right, I've got 2 left that I have to figure out where to put them. A rectangle is always a quadrilateral where all angles are right angles. Where can I put this? A rectangle is always a quadrilateral where all angles are right. Is this a true statement or is this a false statement? Christopher, what do you think, Christopher? Is this a true or a false statement? A rectangle is always a quadrilateral where all angles are right angles. What would you say, Christopher? True or false? One is true. So this is a true statement. Make sure you pick up your mask a little bit further, Christopher. Over your nose, sir. Okay? This is true. A rectangle is always going to be a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. And all the angles in the rectangle are right angles. Okay, I've got one last statement. A quadrilateral is always a parallelogram where one set of sides are parallel. Is this a true statement or a false statement? Kylie, what do you say? True or false?
False.
This is a false statement. If something is a parallelogram, it has to have 2 sets of parallel sides, not 1. That's why they call it a parallelogram, because there's 2 sets of parallel sides. Part of the name. When you have all of these ones up to slide 7, don't worry about the rest of them because we didn't do those. But when you have them finished up to slide 7, you can go ahead and turn in your. Let me check yours, Bradley. Okay, should be fixed now, Bradley. So when you have them up to slide 7 finished, go ahead and turn in your work.